This is it, boys. This video will be studied in the universities. This video will be present in a movie similar to Roaring Kitty movie about GameStop. Today, I'm sharing some more facts about Neiro. You might actually say this is a Neiro conspiracy theory, but the things that I got to know spending time on this marketplace. Today you will hear something that you would actually never hear anywhere else. Real market insights, real information about market structure. Even if you don't care about Neiro, I think you should. You will get to know so much more information about how this thing actually operates, how they are thinking, and how they are coordinating and controlling this market. Probably one of the most important videos on the channel. We will actually see how this thing will be playing out over time. I'm sharing a range of facts currently today. This is just crazy. This is just crazy, to be honest. Make sure to watch this video till the end, like this video and subscribe as well. Without further ado, let's start. I don't have a very beautiful presentation for today, but I want to focus on initial narratives of meme coins. I want to focus on Ethereum. Ethereum is essentially receiving a lot of backlash because it's not growing and things like that. It's a dead coin, yet we only saw certain alt season when Ethereum started to surge up, and if you actually remember, Ethereum was $4,000 in March, which is only $900 short of the all-time high of Ethereum, which is a very, very interesting situation if you would ask me for a dead asset, right? Solana also did not reach its all-time high, and you can even argue that the percentage from Solana local all-time high this cycle and all-time high of previous cycle is similar to percentage of Ethereum in these two metrics as well. Yet Ethereum is receiving a bunch of backlash and Solana is praised. Why? Maybe they are leading you to a slaughterhouse. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. We're not talking about this currently. We're talking about the narratives that are the easiest to actually sell for people coming back into the market at different stages of the cycle. This is what actually makes me quite bullish, because I do understand that people who are planning and who are controlling this thing, they are way smarter than me, at least in way of experience on this marketplace. They were robbing retail for many cycles. They know what works exactly, and they know what works specifically. We have to understand that all meme mania started on Ethereum, and it did not start with Pepe, because Crash, for example, he was actually launching his monkeys meme, I think even before Pepe actually. So I think somewhere around March 2023 the whole meme mania on Ethereum started, and Pepe was essentially the one who was able to kind of push very hard. But with meme mania, like, it's kind of started at the same time in 2012, I think, with one of the first memes unleashed on the marketplace as well. And memes were usually the most performing coins of the cycles where they were essentially present, right? I do love Pepe Shiba, and today I'm actually explaining Pepe Shiba to you. Why? During the Q1 and Q2 of 2024, Pepe was actually the main coin to push certain assets. I was long in Pepe, I was heavily in the Pepe ecosystem, and I'm in currently as well. And the main reason for that is that I do understand that this is essentially the asset that attracts exit liquidity, that is coming back into the market the best. Why? Because of the Pepe narrative. It's not very retail friendly, right? But all the retail that you are seeing that was coming at the end of this 2023, at the start of the 2024, all the bears capitulating into the market as well, they are market participants. They know crypto market. They are internet users as well. And if you would put some type of a narrative in front of them, like this is something that retail will be buying, things like that, for some time they might accept the psyop to lure some more people in, right? But in general, they probably won't follow that narrative much. I think something like the attempt to do that actually happened with WIF. WIF was this kind of like normie friendly meme coin that you should be buying in, but a lot of people actually did not believe in WIF, and me as well, because I was looking at it and it did not feel right at that time of the cycle. Yes, retail might be buying it, but I think internally I understood that retail is not coming currently. The retail that came currently are people who actually were in crypto and people who are coming back into the market. Internet users. That's why they understand Pepe. That's why they understand the dark humor. That's why this thing actually is the best thing to attract exit liquidity for the people who are returning to the cycle. And that's why I'm saying that all the largest cabal, the people who are actually controlling this market, people behind Pepe, they understood this thing very, very well. They did not try to push like some type of cute dog meme or something. This was their idea to essentially execute and to perform as well. This was the main concept, to actually extract exit liquidity from the marketplace, because this is the narrative that attracts people who are in the market, who are internet people, who can understand dark humor. However, we are moving further into the cycle. We are at the start of the next leg up of our market currently, and essentially we are somewhere here currently, right? So what you can essentially think about the current setup is that through this new wave, because you have to understand that all these people, they actually got robbed here, all this retail that actually came back in crypto, and some of them are in the situation currently that they don't have actually a lot of money to even come back at this stage of the cycle, or they deliberately created like this type of wall of sentiment, like don't come back, we're probably going lower and things like that, to make sure that they won't be able to participate in this wave, which is essentially the one to actually extract money from actual retail. And to my point of view, Pepe is actually not the best narrative out there to extract money from actual retail. Actual retail dump. Most retail people who will actually be coming into the market, holders of Dogecoin and Shiba Inu, they're fucking dumb. They're default people, they don't do anything with their lives, they're watching Instagram, they're constantly on TikTok, the IQ is below average, as essentially the most of people out there. Pepe is kind of a bit, I would say, a bit too smart. Like, you want to have Pepe for your exit liquidity when you're targeting some kind of like software engineers or internet geeks or fucking weak man pussies from the internet, right? You're not having Pepe's exit liquidity for white trash in the US, or like working man in other essentially different, like women especially. Like, you're not attracting women as exit liquidity with Pepe. Can you imagine that? Like, does it not sound like fucked up in your brain? Like, how can you actually attract women to be exit liquidity with Pepe? They're never buying Pepe. And what kind of confirms this overview of mine right here is that essentially Pepe narrative became heavily accepted on the marketplace currently. There are people that screaming that Pepe is going to $50 billion 100% currently. And you know what? When someone is actually starting to scream about something, and when the narrative is widely accepted in the market, that means that it's probably actually not happening. I do think that Pepe is actually the large giant psyop to lure the liquidity of the current crypto participants. And why it's a very, very smart psyop is because these people understood that in the first wave of the market, people that will be coming back, they are people from crypto, they are people from internet, they are people with either average IQ or higher than average IQ. That's why they should be lured into the asset that will essentially be favorable, be likable by this exit liquidity, dark humor for smarter people. Next part of the cycle is different. So what I'm saying is that in this next leg up, I don't think that Pepe should actually be going like way harder. I think it might go to all-time high, maybe 10 billion max. I do think that assets that are Pepe better placed, like Boba, NT, Apu, and essentially assets around them, they should be surging up quite nicely, following this narrative. Bread probably as well, but I also, as I already understand this, and as I'm telling you this, I do expect more and more people to eventually start to understand these things moving further as well, and start to understand that this is not the most appealing asset to the real exit liquidity. This asset kind of already played out to a certain extent. So current market participants and people who would be coming back to crypto, they might be lured into this asset and into the better place of this asset as well, right? But I do believe that for the next part of the cycle, for more retail part of the cycle, there should be a better narrative, a better type of asset that will be appealing to Instagram girls, that would be appealing to people with lower than leverage IQ, that would be appealing to people who are watching TikTok all day, that would be appealing for people who are working on the jobs, doing nothing, and they're 100% fine with their lives and everything that's going around as well. And this is this type of asset. This is this smiling dog with a narrative of Dogecoin sister. And I'm looking at these things as a businessman, right? So Why bread was a success? Partially because bread is easy to understand through Pepe. Bread essentially served as a parasite to Pepe because Pepe essentially educated the market on the narrative, and bread kind of continued this narrative for all the people that missed Pepe. If you remember, bread actually launched quite after some time after the initial Pepe pump, which is quite interesting. Let's actually check out this on the chart currently, because I just recall this information currently, and it would be very, very interesting for me to see what is the exact timing of the launch of bread. I do remember the timing of the launch of bread, right? No, actually they started to pump around the same time, right? 500 million. Yeah, so bread I think started to pump in at the end of February. So after the initial FOMO on Pepe, it started actually to pump. Very, very interesting, right? So essentially, the same way as Andy was a parasite and is a parasite on bread narrative, because bread team invested a bunch of money of marketing to educate the audience on the boys club narrative, and Andy is kind of the one who is actually using that as well. And bread used the same thing with Pepe, and this thing is actually using this with Dogecoin. And the reason it's way better than Pepe narrative is because Dogecoin actually, like, what did Pepe team spend on education on the narrative? Like maybe tens of millions of dollars max, like hundreds of millions of dollars max, right? Dogecoin, I do think that Dogecoin actually spent tens of billions of dollars on education of this narrative, right? And essentially being able to have something like Neiro with a narrative that kind of is a parasite on these $10 billion that we spent already. It's very, very simple and easy to understand. It's Dogecoin sister. It's even easier than Shiba Inu at this stage, right? And you also don't have any back holders like from the previous cycle. You don't have the chart that like went up like this and now like it's trying to go back up. You have the chart that just goes up like straight. So it's also a very, very interesting type of point right there. And it's definitely a more friendly retail narrative. It has this thing that, oh, like Dogecoin died and it's like its sister and things, so it's also a dog. Like it's definitely better for default average people out there to extract life savings from retail. How many people actually rob? Like default merchant stores, like default people that are working in the grocery shops, they like in different countries, they were actually making like $300 a month. And everything they had in the portfolio at the peaks of the last bull market were Shiba Inu and Dogecoin, and they just holded these things to zero. They were liquidity that was created to dump these assets to zero for people who actually knew what are they doing. That's why Neiro is definitely better. And to support this narrative, to kind of explain this thing to you, because you still might think that I'm just fucking the head and I'm just stupid and nothing is actually happening. The fact that this narrative is essentially the one that is appreciated on the marketplace a lot. The fact of this is that your favorite influencers, people you follow and respect, right? If you don't want to like follow me, if you think I'm stupid and stuff. First, there were two Neiros on Solana that were battling each other heavily. All of the Solana influencers actually divided and showed different Neiros. Then Cabal came in. They created their own Neiro version, which actually won, which took the place of the Solana. And then Justin Sun and Binance Neiro essentially appeared, which took the place of this Neiro. But I don't actually think that this Neiro is done, and I will tell you some things about it as well. And I will explain to you specifically why Binance did not only decide to only steal the narrative, but they were pretty pissed off with the actions of the Cabal Neiro. I will show them and I will explain this part to you specifically. So this is essentially about the narrative. This is something I wanted to say. This is something how I wanted to prove to you that this narrative is way better. Because if you are thinking about default people out there, it's way easier to sell Dogecoin sister than some Pepe coin. Truck drivers in the US, they're not going to buy Pepe coin. They're not going to buy Pepe. Binance liquidity, we will focus on this a little bit later. However, it's actually in the story. It's currently in the story, so let me actually tell you what does this point Binance liquidity means. By the way, this is not something you would ever see telling you and explaining to you in this marketplace. Usually the past like default man, they're closed. This information is closed from default man. You will not see this information anywhere. So What actually happened on this chart? We see this huge capitulation happening. Some people might say that this is essentially the reaction to the market conditions. Market conditions at that stage, they were definitely not ideal, but I would say that only the team of this thing actually had the supply to dump this thing to these levels, right? And for example, in case of bread, they did not decide to do it. They formed a floor somewhere right here, and they were using the funds that they extracted at these levels, right, to actually hold this floor. These guys, they did not decide to do it, but at the same time, they did not kill the project, understanding the narrative. This act of greed actually is something that I think pissed off Binance, because what they did, I do think they decided to dump this thing almost to zero. They dumped from $250 million market cap to $20 million market cap, because somewhere early in the process, they actually figure out that they will be listed on Binance Perps. And I will explain to you. This information is also, you cannot find it anywhere. You cannot find it anywhere. It was shared in a Russian-speaking interview several days ago. It's not available on English-speaking part of the market. You cannot find it anywhere. The information about Binance perpetuals and what are they actually doing for meme coins. But we are focusing on Binance liquidity at this stage, right? Why Binance got pissed off with this fact? What happened later? After they dumped this thing to $20 million, they longed. They entered giant long positions on different exchanges, and on the news of Binance perpetuals shirt, they essentially made a bunch of money right here. And this dump was because Binance launched the own version of Neiro, which is a CTO, Neiro, right? CTO. But I will explain why they actually had done this. So why they pissed off Binance with this action, with dumping to zero and longing from zero. Because essentially you have to understand how perpetuals, in order to understand this, you have to understand how perpetuals are working on different exchanges. Perpetuals are working in different exchanges in different ways. There is A book, B book, C book, but I'm not going to explain this shit to you. You don't care, right? The only thing you have to know is, in order to be able to have perpetuals on your exchange, if you, for example, want to create an exchange, right, you have to have a liquidity provider. Liquidity provider is usually someone who's essentially lending you liquidity for people to be able to use perpetuals. So what you are doing as the founder of exchange, you're just sending the order book to the liquidity provider, and based on these orders, liquidity provider is either taking liquidity from the users because they lost the money and got liquidated, or is paying liquidity back to them if essentially they are in profits. And what's interesting is that everyone on the marketplace know that liquidity providers are usually used like outsourced, third party. Like when you want to create an exchange, you're not usually using your own liquidity provider. You need to have a bunch of checks, a bunch of certificates in the first place, and you need to have a bunch of money as well. So usually third-party liquidity provider for perpetuals is usually being used on exchange. And for the bunch of exchanges, perpetual liquidity provider is actually Binance. You have to understand this. So what these guys actually did by entering longs here on different exchanges and taking bunch of money right here on the news of Binance perpetuals, they robbed Binance. They robbed Binance because Binance is a liquidity provider for the exchanges. You are not getting this information anywhere. They robbed Binance. This is one of the reasons of why they actually became very pissed off with this narrative and decided almost to kill the project themselves. I can also share you some more things, that there are some exchanges that are specifically focusing on perpetuals, and sometimes they have algorithms on their end where if they are seeing that the trader is not profitable over a long enough time frame, they actually stop to send his orders to the liquidity provider. They start to serve as a liquidity provider themselves in order to take money from this trader themselves, if they see following certain algorithms that he's usually not profitable. But this is different piece of information. It's probably a bit too complex, and it's definitely a very, very gray area for this type of exchanges, right? Coming back to our situation, this is part of the solution here. This is part of our equation, right? Partially, you have to understand that what these people did through this action, they robbed the Binance. I honestly believe that Binance would not actually support a Neiro CTO if something like this would not happen. If they decided not to be too greedy, and if they decided to just hold the floor here, like the team on Bread essentially did, for example, during the time of FUD that they had, and if they decided to hold this floor here, most likely Binance would not essentially try to steal the narrative, right? But at the same time, the narrative is too good. They understand it. And secondly, I do think that this team actually have a very, very high chance of using this to their advantage. I would love for the team of Cabal, Neiro, to watch this video and my previous video as well. I have a very, very interesting feeling that they probably watched my previous video about the Team China and Team US situation, right? Coming back to our thing. So what they've done, they robbed Binance. RB robbed Binance. This is one of the reasons of why they were pissed off, because Binance is the liquidity provider for the perpetuals on most on the smaller exchanges, right? Second thing is Binance is the largest cabal in crypto by far. Coinbase definitely has its own regulations. It's in the US. It's like it actually holds BTC for ETFs and Ethereum as well. So it's definitely playing in a different league. So Binance, you might say that Binance is essentially the largest cabal there. Justin Sun as well, 100%. One of the members of the largest cabal. He has infinite amount of money. He is a billionaire as well. Justin Sun, along with Binance, decided to steal Neiro narrative, right? This is something that was happening, and they essentially decided to push their own CTO, unprecedented. Never a token of $15 million market cap, yet a meme coin was actually launched on Binance. Unprecedented. And currently, we do have Binance perpetuals for this thing as well, and we do have spot and perpetuals for Neiro from CTO. Coming back, a short remark I have to say. Again, information you will not hear anywhere because it was shared on Russian-speaking part of the market several days ago, and a lot of people probably missed it because they are not interested in the situation. Difference between NFTs and meme coins, and why meme coins are the evolution of NFTs, is because with NFT you kind of have a hype on the launch. You launch this thing and then it just goes to zero. So it looks like pump and dump, right? It looks like a Christmas tree, the chart. With meme coins, you have a bit of a different situation because meme coins has the act of launching on Binance and further on Coinbase. But I would say the main thing is Binance, and I'm explaining to you this currently. You will not hear this information anywhere else. This is critical for understanding of the market structure. This is critical to actually be able to make any money in this market. So, what does Binance Perpetuals do for a coin? First of all, this is this type of goal that you can have. And this kind of thing you can kind of hold the project around for the holders of the project, essentially, because you might be sure that your project is actually will be listed on Binance, and that's why you actually would want to hold. But this is just the part of the reason, and I would say that the main reason is the one that I'm going to uncover to you currently. No one is telling you this. When the token is listed, when a meme coin is listed on Binance Perpetuals, what does it actually get? What does it acquire? It acquires the access to thick liquidity from Binance. Very thick liquidity. What it results to, you can kind of think of Binance Perpetuals as BTC ETF for Bitcoin. It makes the asset essentially ranging in this certain area. The asset cannot dump heavily or pump heavily because it has thick liquidity. Pump heavily it actually can, because the market can go like very, very high. It obviously over time it might be able to dump heavily if the market is going to shit. But in general, in the sideways scenario of the market, which is I would say worst case scenario in the bull market, which we're in currently, right? It cannot dump heavily because it has access to thick liquidity from Binance Perpetuals. Once your meme coin is on Binance Perpetuals, you can't be dumping it very, very hard. Like if you have 15% of supply, 30% of supply, you can be dumping it for a long, long time, essentially. It will stay in the range most likely because traders would want to trade your asset because you are getting the access to thick Binance liquidity. This is what's important, and this is why meme coins are essentially one of the reasons of why they are way better invention than essentially the NFTs, and why they will fuck this cycle moving further as well. So coming back to our points, I hope I explained you the situation with the Binance liquidity. Neiro Cabal team, the Neiro from Team USA, I think they pissed off Binance because they essentially robbed it through these longs. They robbed them through different exchanges, and that's why they decided in the act of revenge, they decided to pump Team China Neiro, right, along with the Justin Sun. And second reason was obviously the narrative. They understood that this is the narrative that can be dumped in the retail. They have been milking retail for many cycles already. They understand specifically that the next part of the cycle is the retail part of the cycle. They also understand that Pepe is not the best narrative out there, and that's why they essentially plan to push something like this. Interesting thing is connected with Shiba whales as well. Shiba Inu whales, a meme coin that reached 40 billion market cap last cycle. It was at $20 billion market cap in March, which is quite crazy if you would think about that. Currently it's at 8 billion, right? So it definitely, like, even currently it's larger than Pepe all-time high. So when Pepe was actually surging up, Pepe whales were making fun from Shiba Inu whales. And people in our space, I would say that because of how they acquire the whales and because of how people treat them when they acquire the whales, they have very, very large egos, but they don't often essentially mean anything out of themselves. They're just nothing. They just like got lucky, or they just figure out how this space works. But mostly it's essentially robbing other people, right? So they have this issue with imposter syndrome, like most of the people in this, because they internally feel like they don't deserve this amount of money that they essentially were able to receive. And I think that the same situation happened with Pepe whales and Shiba whales. So Shiba whales, they actually supported Chinese version of Neiro, right? And the situation that I was explaining to you through a Team China and Team USA Neiro video is that I was essentially listing to you different parties that we have on different ends, right? And Pepe is definitely Team USA. Shiba is Team China at this stage. So these are essentially, as they're supporting CTO Neiro, which is essentially from Binance, Justin Sun, which is Asian, right? And what's interesting, it might not just turn into the battle of Team USA versus Team China. It's essentially the battle of Pepe whales. And you have to understand these things, because you might say that Pepe market cap is not that large, so probably Pepe whales, they don't have a bunch of money. Pepe is a large operation of anonymous Ethereum whales. They have a bunch of money. 100%. And Shiba whales. So it's essentially a battle. Like, it can turn into a battle, because currently we are at, I think we're at the crossroads currently. The first way is essentially for the battle to start and for Neiro to start battling each other. The second way is for Cabal Neiro to die out. I don't think this would be happening because it's already on Binance perpetuals, and I explained you the reasoning. And at the same time, for Chinese Neiro, I do think that, like, if some of these people, if you're watching this as well, who have actually any decision making power in this setup, what you have to understand it is through the battle, you will be actually able to gather more liquidity, right? Maybe in some time you actually would change the tickers for Neiro as well. It won't be like a CTO Neiro and Neiro on Ethereum. It would be Neiro USA and it would be Neiro China, or it would be Neiro Asia. This way you would be able to rob the largest amount of retail out there. You have to understand these things. And you will be able to attract the largest amount of attention to the crypto market through this battle, through this type of the battle. You won't be able to do it if you would, because for example, like Pepe whales or Team USA, they actually would want to start to communicate with China whales and like, hey guys, can you please give us some supplies so we will kill our Neiro and stuff? Nah, this is pussy bullshit. And China whales, they need to understand as well that through this battle, you would also be able to make more money than if USA Neiro will just die out, right? Because the battle will essentially turn into a show and it will attract way more liquidity. Like, I would say if the battle won't be happening, this narrative will attract $50 billion in terms of the market cap, right? If this battle will be happening, it might attract at least $150 billion, because this would be the battle between West and the East. The best battle out there that mankind actually was able to figure out. So, probably talking too much about this Pepe and Shiba situation, so we have to move on. Pepe Shiba Cabal. I hope that you understood the thoughts, you understand the thought process currently, and how genius it actually is. I'm either fucked in the head or I'm either a genius, and the best part is that we would be able to figure this out very, very soon as well. I always like when things can be proven in a quite short time frame, right? Next thing is everyone is silent. Probably the right word is flabbergasted or something, right? The fact that market just does not care at this stage. It does not care about this incident. It does not care about Neiros. Like, guys are back into trading Solana shitcoins. The market does not remember that 3 weeks ago, the largest Solana influencers were actually battling over this narrative. The market is not buying better plays on Ethereum around this thing, because if one of these things surges, essentially the better plays will do crazy well. So it's almost like Bobo's situation. It's very, very similar to Bobo's situation, despite the fact that right now I have way more information on the market, and it just makes way more sense, because at that time it mostly was conviction plus belief. Here it's pretty much market analysis and different things I heard from different sources, and it's just the way I would set up this, to be honest. If I would be like a Pepe whale, or if I would be the part of Cabal Neiro at this stage, I would be doing something like this. I do think it's the peak of stupidity for them to just stop working on the narrative. They like the cards that they have, the hand that they have currently is a hand can easily be yielding them hundreds of millions of dollars easily on the course of 1 to 2 years. And it can easily be going into the next cycle as well, the same way as Dogecoin and Shiba Inu, right? Easily. So they're pretty much creating a new asset class for life, if they are playing the hand right. If they are, right? It's crazy. And maybe like at the end, they can have like some type of merge into one year. Like it's like, it would be like a Game of Thrones, you know, like crazy show from all of this situation. But obviously, not a lot of people are seeing this currently, so I'm just explaining what I'm seeing, because this is something I'm thinking on, and this is something I'm betting on currently as well. Pepe is to rob crypto people. It's a psyop. Neiro is to rob retail. I explained this as well already. I do think that Pepe, better asset on the next leg up, will be doing very, very well, because there is not much upside left in Pepe, right? But I do believe that if I understood that this is essentially a psyop specifically directed to rob crypto people and Neiro narrative is better, I'm probably one of the first people in the world to actually understand this. And thus far, I do think that more and more people will start understanding this as well. And your goal in the crypto market is to actually invest into the assets that will be robbing retail out of the money, because this is the largest amount of money that will be in the asset. And Neiro is the best candidate out there. Most of the market does not understand this at this stage. But to be honest, it feels like a psyop as well. The fact that everyone is silent, that most of the market does not understand this at this stage, it's just crazy to me. It's just crazy to me. 100 billion was spent on marketing of Doge. They can reason. I said this to you already. Why this is important is because they don't have to spend, they remove the whole budget on education right away. They just say it's Doge sister, and what they have to spend marketing budgets on currently is just letting people know that, hey, there is like Doge sister, right? And best marketing is number go up. It's essentially like a Ponzi scheme, right? And it's just so great. Binance perpetuals, I explained this to you as well. Once the asset is on Binance perpetuals, it essentially receives access to thick liquidity, and that the fact that Neiro Cabal team most likely robbed Binance through longing Neiro heavily on other exchanges, because Binance is a liquidity provider for these exchanges. Imagine Neiro ticker will be changed to Neiro USA and Neiro China. Neiro China probably not. Neiro USA easily I think. This is also one of the most important narratives out there that I would want to cover, because it also serves underlying market structure the best. So Ethereum was pumped through Pepe. Now it will be pumped through Neiro. What we have to understand, that what was the main narrative to pump Ethereum back in March? Nothing really was happening. And I would say that the main narrative to pump Ethereum was actually Pepe. And essentially, people from Pepe whales, even Ethereum, I think Ethereum Foundation is partially in this thing as well, like 100%. Here is essentially the overview. It's true, the people I spoke with re-entering were all asking me about Pepe last November. Over the next months, BTC will hit a new all-time high. Multiple memes will go to billions. Retail will flock into crypto. What will they buy? Top memes. And the guy saying it's true. Bunch of people were asking about Pepe. This is something that is yet to be true, is yet to come essentially again. And it's coming with the new all-time high for BTC as well. People will be buying into the top memes. And the best top meme to wrap retail, because new people that will be coming, they should be retail. I don't think that at this stage, there is, like, you have to understand the market is kind of went through the crypto people already. Like everyone who ever was touching crypto at a significant level, he is already in the market, or he already got robbed by the market in the last 6 months. You have to understand this. Next people that are left are actually retail people. That's why retail narratives that essentially provide the hardest type of reaction from retail should be present. They should be at the top, right? You have to understand these things. So Ethereum was pumping to 4K through Pepe. Pepe is a narrative for crypto people. So they would think it's actually not a PvP but PvE, because retail would essentially be buying Pepe down the road and things like that, but unfortunately all got fooled, and it really was a PvP narrative specifically for crypto people, because I don't think that retail will be buying Pepe in large chunks, and it would be very, very interesting type of discouragement realization for Pepe people holders. But I will play on this. Like I will still be positioned in my assets. I will still, because to a certain extent it will also do well. I would just put my money in two different baskets, and at the same time, like you can put not a large amount of money into Neiro currently, into Neiro beta assets at this stage, because they're fucking at the bottoms currently, right? They understand the target audience very well. Pepe is for crypto geeks, Neiro is for retail. Something I'm telling you as well. Like through this analysis, through me essentially understanding these things, talking about these things, I start to realize that people at the top, they are way smarter. They're way fucking smarter than I essentially thought about them. And it's not even about like smart, it's about street smart. It's about having a bunch of experience. It's about robbing retail for several cycles. They see these things. They see these things and they use these things. And man, it's just crazy. Like no one gives a shit about Neiro currently. This is just a giant psyop. You will give a shit about Neiro. Some people are saying that I'm paid to do these videos. Yeah, I'm talking about this old World War. I'm talking about US versus China. I'm talking about people going to jail. I'm talking about Cabals robbing retail. Of course, these companies and these people and these Cabals, they will be paying for this, right? Of course, 100%, because this is something that they would want to hear about them. People that were able to receive giant amount of money that do not deserve this amount of money in the first place. They understand it and they have huge imposter syndromes, right? Last February, people that were returning to the market, all they were asking about is Pepe. Show me to tweet. I essentially showed this to you as well. So this is my overview. This is my scheme. And I do think it actually makes a bunch of sense. I do think that like it's very, very interesting bet, because if you actually like betting on leverage, you might like want to bet like 10k, right? But if you're wrong, you will be losing 10k. Like let's say you're longing Neiro on Ethereum with 10k with 5x leverage. You're losing 10k if you're wrong. If you win and if you hold through the cycle, that could be several $1 million. So it's a very, very nice bet, especially if you would add 10 or 20k on top of it and buy a little bit of better Neiro assets. That's the same way as buying Bobo and the same way as buying some other assets that are essentially connected to the Neiro asset in the first place. So let me know if there are any issues, if there are any flaws in this logic. I know that some of you already saying that I'm just insane and this won't be happening, but it does not have to happen in the exact way that I'm essentially telling you. By the way, I do think that like this period of silence is being used to try to attract some people into this token, and some people might not want to come into this token because they would understand that then I will be screaming that I actually told you about this, and they won't be first and they won't be joining because of the ego. If you will be joining this token, I will shut the fuck up. I will never pop up this video and I will never say I can work with my ego properly. I can shut the fuck up. And you know, I've done this already with some of the assets on the crypto market as well. And at the same time, my word, it does not push the price of Neiro currently. It does not push. And definitely the word of some other people on this marketplace, it pushes meme assets out there. So even if I was able to talk about this before, I'm still not pushing the market currently. So it's essentially useless. I'm quite humble if you can actually see these things, right? So I do think that this point of silence is the preparation. I don't think Wintermute did not acquire 7% of the supply and is actively market making this asset just for lulz. There is some sentiment going on that they may have been acquiring before the CTO Neiro actually appeared, and now essentially they will what? They will just send this thing to zero. I think they have a very, very interesting thing on their hand. I think that some talks in the background might be happening currently, some preparation. And it's very, very interesting for me to see that essentially nothing is happening currently. Like market totally forgot. It's almost like the Trump assassination as well. It's very interesting. Like we don't really see the effect of like TikTok and shorts on our brain. Can you imagine 3 to 4 weeks ago, this thing was the largest narrative. Ansem and Sol shitfluencers, they divided into 2 camps and they were fighting each other for this thing. It's just crazy. And right now, the same thing might be happening with companies, because what you have to understand that Sol shitfluencers, they don't command any liquidity in the bear market. All of the fans, they're fucking poor. They don't have any money. They lost everything. They lost everything in the correction. At the end of the correction, they don't have anything. You have to understand this. So they do command zero liquidity on the end of the corrections. But we're not talking about Sol shitfluencers PvPing about this. We're talking about potential PvP amongst the largest cabal, with highly likely the same goal. First of all, just robbing retail. Secondly, attracting a bunch of users to Coinbase and Binance. And in the third way, pumping the underlying asset, which is Ethereum. I do think there is a specific reason why Ethereum was essentially a chain of choice for this thing, right? And Binance and Justin Sun, they specifically took Neiro CTO, which is the asset that sent money to Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, and he sent this money into charity. Last time this happened was with Shiba Inu, and Shiba Inu are supporting the CTO. This is not the Cabal one that I'm talking about. The Cabal one is at $87 million market cap at this stage. This is Neiro CTO, which is at $360 million market cap. But me personally, I just don't see any reason for the Cabal one to catch up. And I said that already, that the best type of scenario for both of them is PvP, because I do think that much more liquidity will be directed on these assets. And if they will connect this PvP with something meaningful, which is East versus West, China versus United States of America. This is just the best thing for them, the best narrative. It's crazy. It's crazy how people don't see these things. And as mentioned, I will either be insane, right? Maybe I'm partially already, or this fucking video will be in movies, the same ones that were made about Big Short and the Roaring Kitty as well. We'll see. I'm a humble guy. I don't know. I'm just betting with my money on this thing and explaining to you how I'm seeing this thing from my point of view. And it's interesting that like all these pieces of information, they were coming to me over time. So Pepe Cabal shitting on Shiba Cabal and Shiba Cabal being hurt and things like that. Binance perpetuals, liquidity providers on the exchanges, and kind of currently it all combines into this one picture with this asset and this narrative. It's crazy. It's crazy to see these things unleashing and happening, and it's more crazy for me to see that the market does not give a shit at this stage. It's almost like this time where the whole market is wrong and I'm right. And usually, as we know, as with any participant on the marketplace, usually this is the wrong type of stance to have, right? But you also can't say that the whole market is wrong, because like there are a bunch of people that essentially believe in this narrative as well and hold some money in this narrative too. It's just crazy for me to understand and to see these things unleash and happen. So this is it from my end. Let me know, have I actually finally turned insane, right? Or do you see any sense in this conspiracy theory about Neiro? And one more time, I do think it might be not that interesting, but over time it might become very, very interesting. Very, very fucking interesting. Thank you very much for watching this video. As usual, I will be seeing you tomorrow.